There is a global worker shortage. People can't get workers to do jobs. Is it because they're not paying them enough? Is it because they're making ridiculous demands of those workers? Well, not in some cases, because some companies are dropping drug tests for workers simply to make it easier to get workers. Sort of accepting you don't have to be on drugs to work here, but it helps. Hello, you. Welcome to the news. In the midst of a global labour shortage, employers around the world are doing away with drug tests in a desperate bid to attract more job applicants, fill more roles and retain more workers. That's pretty funny, isn't it? Alright, we need workers, you're allowed to take drugs now. A survey conducted by staffing firm Manpower Group, released this week, indicated that employers worldwide were eliminating job screenings or drug tests as an incentive to attract and retain in-demand talent. Are you on drugs? Yeah. Would you like a job? No, not really. Well, look, you can still take the drugs. Okay then. Could you be in at noon? No. Well, just try your best. That equates to employers from 43 companies who are willing to turn a blind eye to workers' recreational drug use if it means filling vacant positions. On one hand, I think, if people are recreationally using drugs, that's their business, no one else's business. It should be their right, their body, their life, their right to do whatever drugs they want. But what worries me about it is that people are taking drugs because they're miserable and unhappy, because life's become futile and empty. And because instead of adjusting the system to create roles and lives that are more reflective of who we really are spiritually, it's like, just let them take drugs so they can deaden the feeling while they do jobs that they hate. I know there'll be loads of you doing this that do jobs that you're just not into, where you feel detached and that the best thing in your life is some peak experience achieved through a chemical or a screen. That's the macro view, you know, when we're doing these chats, when I'm doing these videos. I'm thinking, there's something better. There's something better for all of us. The aim can't be to live in relative poverty and spiritual penury, drugging yourself through the day before just sort of tipping over into an open casket. Last month, a report by Deloitte noted that this global talent shortage, when did we start? That's really confusing, is coinciding with elevated unemployment rates in places like the US, UK, Canada and Australia as economies start to reopen following COVID-19 lockdowns. Not only are more individuals finding themselves out of work, but employers are also experiencing difficulty in attracting and hiring qualified candidates. Screening measures like drug tests, which threaten to weed out candidates from an already small talent pool, only complicate things further. I've spoken to friends of mine that are in business and that work in hospitality and stuff, and they can't find people to wait and they can't find people to be busboys. And I suppose I'll say here what I said to them: why don't you pay people more money? And they said, well, because the economic model of our business cannot sustain that. And then I thought, wow, it shows you how fragile these things are and that they are utterly dependent on what you might call underpaid labour, because I think to a degree it's a migrant crisis also. Certainly in the UK, many people think it's as a result of Brexit and people like having been at home furloughed for ages and thinking, I ain't doing that no more. And in the US, I don't know what the conditions are in your country if you are an American, but it seems to me that there's a kind of underlying despair and an unwillingness to hurl your life into some low paid work for no real reason. I think it's this over-reliance on the idea of the individual. Well, if you're got a lot of, mojo, you'll be able to get a job as a waiter and you work your way up to the top, then you'll start your own restaurant, you'll become a billionaire. It's the American dream. Well, increasingly these days, the game is so rigged, things are so tied up that that dream, it seems harder to go asleep and into that dream than it once was. Some of the world's biggest companies have already cottoned onto this and have started to adapt their hiring protocols accordingly. In June, Amazon, the second biggest global employer, based out of the US, announced it would no longer test for marijuana in its pre-employment drug testing for jobs not regulated by the US Department of Transportation. This was a substantial change that would allow the company to move closer to its long-term vision of becoming Earth's best employer, according to Dave Clark, Amazon CEO of Worldwide Consumer. Do you know what makes us Earth's best employer? What? Everyone's stoned? They won't notice how little we're paying them. Yeah, that'll work. In the past, like many employers, we've disqualified people from working at Amazon if they tested positive for marijuana use, Clark said in the announcement. However, given where state laws are moving across the US, we've changed course. That's interesting though, isn't it? Because it's legal, but do you still feel like at work? Like, I mean, I was a drug addict and there was a phase of that where my primary drug of choice was cannabis. It didn't help work unless that work was imagining things, which I was quite good at. But it was also not good for driving, which I didn't learn to do for 15 years. Selling photocopiers, working, all of them things, working in bars, restaurants, it was Not good for that. Amazon has also advised delivery partners, contractors who own and operate the delivery vans emblazoned with the Amazon logo. Clever. We don't do the vans. We have nothing to do with them guys. They're out there, they do what they like. To clearly advertise people who try and driver positions that they don't test for cannabis use. That's to clearly advertise that. Come and work as an Amazon driver. We do not test for cannabis use. We're not saying take cannabis, but we say if you do, we won't know. Claiming that the move could increase applications by 400%. This is the potted market they're trying to get into. What they called it earlier, the talent pool. And now it's just the stoner pond. The company claimed that screening for marijuana cuts the prospective worker pool by up to 30%. Look, the sad truth behind this is so many people are dissatisfied and unhappy that their primary means for getting through life is to medicate themselves through the use of drugs. I know a little bit about addiction, and most people that use drugs to a chronic degree are using it as a sort of salve for some kind of misery, disconnection or despair. So even though I'm laughing about this because bits of it seem kind of funny, at the heart of it, this is very sad because there are two truths that are revealed by this. One, the reality of our economic system cannot accommodate workers, it can't afford them, it's sort of collapsing, so it's balanced on an illusion, built on a fallacy anyway. And two, so many people are unhappy in the world that their primary means for survival is self-medication. They're holding themselves together through drug use, even if you see sort of cannabis as kind of a friendly drug, and certainly compared to some of the drugs I've taken, it is, but the reality remains the same. People are very unhappy and we're living in an illusion. Two conclusions. An employer drug testing survey released last year by Current Consulting Group found that 36% of poll respondents who were planning to remove marijuana from their testing panel were doing so because they were experiencing delays and cannot fill positions due to high marijuana positives. Wow, everyone's stoned. Bob Dylan was ahead of the curve. Everybody did just get stoned and now they can't drive an Amazon van. Even in countries where marijuana isn't being decriminalised, though, drug tests have been causing headaches for employers. Marijuana's quite good for healing that. In Western Australia, small businesses across a range of industries report an increased difficulty in filling labour shortages ever since the state government introduced mandatory drug testing policies in November 2020. We've tried many different media outlets, different sort of ads, different angles, word of mouth, not even a phone call, said Steve McKenney, owner of a butchery company. If we put a sign up, we could easily get 40 or 50 applicants, but if the sign says, must submit to drug testing, it's down to 4 or 5. Bloody hell. I don't want to work in a butcher's if I was stoned. It would seem too like, oh, Jesus Christ, oh, this was a lamb. With talent shortages plateauing at a 15-year high, many employers around the world are deciding that something has to give, and for several thousand of them, that's drug tests. Wow, drug tests, by the by. That's interesting, isn't it? For some of you, what a relief, because now you can, take drugs while you do your job. But for me, the serious things that come out of that story is that the fragile capitalist free market economic model with regard to businesses that require low-paid employees can't survive without the illusion of low-paid labour, and a significant number of people are stoned all of the time because life is painful and difficult. It's odd how we misread these signs, how we see it as, we need more migrant labour, or, but when the sort of other conclusions you could draw is people need to be paid more, people need to have a better standard of life. Economics and work shouldn't be at the centre of our existence. We could express ourselves in many different ways, that even things that are formidable and frightening and foreboding now, like the AI revolution, could be marvellous in the right hand. That could lead to a leisure society, that could lead to fairness. But it won't, because it will be centralised, it will be controlled, it will lead to more people losing jobs, it will lead to lower paid workers, it will lead to higher drug use. So I suppose what you have to say is that at the head of this system are a problematic set of beliefs, and unless they change, all of this sort of, the symptoms of it will continue to get worse. If you agree with what I've just said, let me know in the comments below. If you disagree, let me know. Why don't you give this video a little like, cling, thumbs up. Why don't you press the subscription bell, become a subscriber to this so you get told. And let me know if you're not hearing about it, by the way. Click the notification bell. Let me feel your love. Let me enter into your phone at will, clanging away when you try to get on with your life. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. If anything, it's a little bit better. If you need to meditate now instead of your constant drug use, have a little look at this. Please sign up to my mailing list at russellbrand.com, and if you want deep conversations of this nature, consider subscribing to Under the Skin on Luminary from Apple. But get on my mailing list at russellbrand.com so we can stay in touch, stay free.
That was Russell Brand, obviously. I'm not saying I agree with all of that, but I thought it was very interesting. And, well, anyway, that's all.